Hello everybody, this is RegiTime here with my May 2016 podcast that almost didn't happen because I was struggling for a topic. We stumbled on one right at the end of the month, and the topic I've stumbled upon comes from a course I did just the other week at work. For those of you that don't know, and please, this is a very quick preamble, so don't think, oh, this guy's rambling. Those of you that don't know, I'm a support worker. I work with adults with learning disabilities and challenging behaviours, autism, mental health issues, that type of thing. And the course that we went on was kind of, it was a mixture of a course. It was like a theory course and a physical course of how to protect ourselves when our clients become escalated and start to have crises. So while we're on the course, there was a slide that I thought was like, as soon as I started talking about it, my mind switched to poker. And this isn't the exact slide, but it's close enough to it. It's called the emotional arousal cycle. And this is it in all its glory here. And we're going to talk about it going through the cycle in more of a poker terms rather than the terms they talked about, which was people, the people that we support who get annoyed by something, start to get tilted, do something really violent, start to come down off tilt, and then we're still at risk of being assaulted, and then how to deal with the post-crisis depression phase. And all of these things we can absolutely 100% relate to poker. Now, this isn't going to be the longest podcast I've ever done, but I think it could be incredibly useful for people that just don't understand what makes them tilt, how to identify the tilt, how to try and manage the crisis when they're tilted at its peak, and so on. I think it can absolutely 100% be applied to poker. So I'm going to try and do that now. And this isn't going to last much more than maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, I wouldn't have thought. But hopefully it will be super useful to you guys who do struggle controlling your emotions. So first of all, we have what is our baseline behaviour. That is our playing poker under completely normal circumstances, happily grinding away. We've just started our session, we're feeling good, we've just done whatever we've done to prepare well, and everything's going really good for us, and we're just happily grinding away. And we're going to be at this point for a lot of our poker life, at the baseline point. So when we're at baseline, we're not at risk of anything going wrong. We're just fine. But sometimes something will happen, and it would just trigger us. And it could be something like your aces get cracked in a small pot, or somebody will say something in the chat box, or someone will suck out on you in a spot where they shouldn't suck out, and that'll be the trigger. And sometimes, you could be having a good session, and if we're already up a few buy-ins or whatever, it doesn't really bother us, and we return to baseline quite quickly, and it's not really an issue. But other times, if this same trigger happens, but there's already been a few other minor triggers too, you can start to get in this escalation phase here, which is, in my opinion, this is the area where you need to try and be more self-aware of what's happening to you, what's happening to us in our game right now, because this is where we're going to start making some bad decisions. Not really awful decisions, but some bad decisions. This is the area where we're going to start calling those 3-bets with hands we wouldn't normally call with. Or this is the area where, if you're prone to aggressive tilt, where we're going to start 3-betting junk that we don't normally 3-bet, or bluffing what we wouldn't normally 3-bet. This is that phase here, and you need to be really aware when you're in that phase. And at this point, we don't need to be considering like quitting our session. I think a lot of guys would probably do better to quit the session at this point until they get better emotional control. But this is like this spot, if we can identify it and do something about it, whether that's just take a couple of minutes break, go and make a drink, go and get some water, just go and stand on your doorstep, get some fresh air, just do something to get you away from your screen for just a couple of minutes, you might quickly return to baseline. And then you'll be fine. Just carry on your session, and just be aware that any small triggers could again put you in this escalation phase. So that's the first thing you need to identify. But this is something that players are just, even when they identify it, they don't really do enough about it, in my opinion. I've had so many guys that I've spoke to who've said things like, yeah, I could feel myself starting to tilt, but I told myself not to and carried on. It's not enough to tell yourself not to tilt. We don't have enough of us don't have that level of control. We can just say, I'm not going to tilt. Usually you've got to take yourself away from the situation. You've got to allow the adrenaline to stop coursing through your body, return to baseline, and then play again. In this stage, this is where the adrenaline's just started to pump through your body now. So the blood's leaving your brain, it's going to other areas of your body, because that's what adrenaline does. We are now going into like fight or flight mode in this area here. And usually poker players tend to stay and fight rather than do what might be the sensible thing for lots of players and run for the hills. So when you start to get in this area, in my opinion, for most players, especially if you're playing like speed poker where you don't have to set up all your tables again, this is where you need to just run to the hills. If you're a tournament player and you've got a lot of games running and you can't run for the hills because you can't just afford to quit for an hour and just come back later, this is where I think, in my opinion, you do need to go. You need to go and you need to put the kettle on. You need to make a cup of tea. You need to swill your face off with some cold water. You need to go and just take a quick 5-minute power stroll or something. Just something to help you clear your mind and to clear the adrenaline that's coursing through your body, because the adrenaline is running to your muscles at this point. It's going away from your brain into your muscles. You can go and you can try and walk this adrenaline out of your system. Let your heartbeat return to normal. All these things that you feel happening, you need to kind of process them, get them out of your system and come back to baseline. But enough guys don't do that. They go into the fight mode instead, and they start fighting and they start playing really, really aggressively, or whatever it is, however your tilt manifests itself, until the point where you get to this, which is crisis point. If you're a cash game player, this is where you're at severe risk of dropping several buy-ins in very, very short order. If you're a tournament player, this is the point where you could crash out of several of your tournaments all in one go. And if we'd just done something in this stage, in the escalation phase, to prevent it, we wouldn't have this crisis point where everything just goes wrong for however long it is that you're in crisis for, and that kind of ruins your day, ruins your week, ruins your month, however it is. I mean, if we're prone to having some several crisis points every month, I mean, these crisis points could cost us, if we're a cash game player, 20 buy-ins in a month, that maybe if we just stopped during the escalation phase and done something different, we might only have dropped maybe half of that or less than half of that. So it's really important that we try and manage ourselves and not get to this crisis point. When you're in the escalation phase and you are in fight or flight mode, try the flight more than the fight, because then if you get the flight part right, you don't have the crisis point. If you stay and fight, you're frequently going to have the crisis point. So I'm going to try to avoid that, because this is where you really could do some significant damage to your poker roll, to your poker, to everything, your confidence, your bankroll. Especially if you're a tournament player and you've got some good positions in tournaments, you could end up throwing away a heck of a lot of EV, or whatever you want to call it, by just, if you're deep in one tournament and you've had a few bad beats in another one, so you make a mistake in the tournament you're deep in, when it matters that you're playing your very best because the pay jumps are getting high, it can be a big, big disaster. So then we have this, when we start to come down. This is when we've done the whole flight thing. We can avoid the crisis point, but now we're still in the recovery phase from the escalation. We're still in a lot of risk here. So when you come back from your walk, when you come back from making your drink, when you come back from splashing your face with having your cigarette, whatever it is you've done in the flight, as the flight part of getting away from the escalation phase, be aware that when you come back, you're not always that far away from possibly going back into the escalation phase. It's a bit like when Jared Tendler talks about the glass being half full. If you don't completely empty your glass of all your tilt when you go into the flight mode, if you haven't returned all the way to baseline, then you're definitely at risk of these sort of things happening again, where you can just peak and you get close to regressing back into the crisis phase, or you can lapse into crisis having thought you've dealt with it. So you need to be really aware when you come back. Those first 5 or 10 minutes, you need to be constantly just checking yourself, regulating yourself, making sure that you're not having some underlying tilt issues that you kind of haven't properly got rid of during your time away from the computer. And that's really important that you keep managing that. And if you haven't dealt with it yet, if it's a cash game session, maybe then it's time to say, you know what, I'm struggling to deal with this right now, so I'm just not going to play. Or if you're playing tournaments, maybe you just need to look at the clock and think, right, we're X amount of minutes away from a 5-minute break here. I'm going to really, really focus. And if it means just playing like really tightly or something, do whatever you need to do just to get to that tournament break. Excuse me. And then on that tournament break again, just go and just do whatever it is you need to do. Go and do a bunch of push-ups. Or that's not something I do because I'm too heavy. Or go for a walk, go to the shop, do whatever you need to do to try and get yourself as close back to this baseline as we can. We can't always return to baseline in 5 minutes. In fact, very, very rarely can we return to baseline. But we need to try and get back to as close to baseline as possible. And then, and the final bit, that this happens after we've played. This is at the post-crisis depression. If you didn't manage to control yourself and you did get to crisis point, and you did drop a bunch of buy-ins as a cash game player, or you threw away a bunch of good positions in tournaments, this is where you're going to feel really, really shitty about it. This point here, you're going to end your session, and maybe this point goes on for more than what it looks like there in the graph. This can go on for days and days as a poker player, especially if you've been in a tournament and you've really, really destroyed like a good position. I don't know, say you've been to the last few tables with like an overwhelming chip lead, and then you've blown it and you've not even made the final table, and you've given yourself an opportunity, you've missed an opportunity to win like hundreds of buy-ins. Or a cash game session where you really did fall off the cliff and you just pretty much earned 10 buy-ins or so in half an hour. These types of things, this is where you can feel really, excuse me, you can feel really, really shitty for days and days on end. And no matter what people say to you, you feel really low about yourself because you know you've let yourself down in this area here. And you know how much hard work it takes to build your poker bankroll and how easy it is to just destroy it. And this can, like we said, we can go on for a long time. And it's how we deal with this that matters. And this is where I think being part of some supportive groups or having a close circle of like poker friends, this is where it's really important, because this is where you need to like be leaning on each other. This is where you need to be able to say, you know what, I've had a really tough time here, and I know you don't want to listen to my bad beat stories, I know you don't want me to bring you down, but do you mind just having a chat with me and helping me just like process all the thoughts that are going through my mind, help me inject some logic, and help me get back to baseline again. And this is what happened at this lowest point here. We're having all kinds of shitty, crazy thoughts. Am I a winning player? If I keep doing these things, it's going to prevent... And we know we've all had loads of thoughts where we wanted to quit the game, or we've been scared of what can possibly happen to us if it happens again. Scared of like the financial ramifications in our real life. And at this point here, this is where perhaps a bit where my shameless self-promotion comes in. This is where being part of a study group like the one I have for my subscription service is absolutely, utterly invaluable, because it's such a supportive group that they're just the guys there, they're just picking each other up constantly. These things don't happen as much as they should do because we're already part of a supportive group. When they happen, we have the guys here ready to pick them up. And this is a lot of the work I do as a poker coach, as a poker mentor. It's picking people up when they're really down. The actual level of technical poker coaching I do, bearing in mind I'm just working with beginners and inexperienced players, isn't really... It's a lot of stuff that people can find for free on the internet. A lot of that stuff I do, it's not highly skilled at all. It's not highly technical. It's not that difficult to learn. This thing is invaluable. Having people around you that can help pick you up, put you back on your feet, dust you down, you spit on the hanky, rub your eye, all the little things that your mum used to do when you were a toddler and you hurt yourself and you cried your eyes out and your mum made you feel better again. There's not enough of that happening in poker. There's just too much. People don't actually give a fuck about each other. They don't give a shit about each other. And in a lot of cases, people take pleasure from other people's misfortunes and downfalls. There's no one there being your mum and just there saying, come on, we're going to make this better. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make you feel better, and then we're going to rebuild your confidence and make you not scared of whatever it is that hurt you during this phase. And that's where I am, and that's the kind of things I do. And it's really, really important, because this phase is probably finished more poker careers, more promising poker careers than any of these other phases. The odd crisis we can recover from. But if you never really come out of this post-crisis depression phase, this is where you will be starting every new session with tons and tons of underlying tilt until you produce a graph that just goes down like a ski slope and you eventually quit the game. So I hope this podcast and this example of the emotional arousal cycle has been of some use to you. If you do have any questions about it, or if you just want to call me an idiot or a dick or whatever, please do leave comments in the YouTube or on Reddit or on Facebook, wherever you find this. But if you do feel like you would like to, or you don't have enough of a support network to help you during this critical phase for the long-term health of your poker game, please do get in touch with me. I do run a subscription mentoring service. It's just $25 a month. And it's not just for picking you up when you're down. There's lots of other things. We do one-on-one sessions. We do group sessions. You will be part of my poker support network, where there's currently 20 odd players in my group. They're all there, all working towards a common goal. And you won't have the guys in there that are taking pleasure from the fact you're down. When you're in other Skype groups, there's lots of bitching, bickering. People don't like each other. And it manifests itself in some pretty negative chat. You don't get that in my group. You're way more likely to bounce back from this point to baseline and above and being part of a supportive network like the one I provide than you are if you do it solo. So if you do have any mental game problems, please do consider getting in touch with me. For $25 a month, it might end up saving you a fortune. So there we go. Any questions, like I said, please do get in touch with me, and I really hope this has been of some use to you. I really enjoyed doing it, and hopefully it's helped you make sense of some things. So we're going to leave it there, and we'll see you all next month with another podcast. And bye for now. Good luck, and have a fantastic June.